We all know that Paul Gilbert is the god of alternate picking, but many players don't know that a lot of Paul's fastest licks come from a combination of picking and legato, using the simple phrasing trick that we're going to talk about today. Hey there kids, it's your good buddy Uncle Ben reporting to you live from our brand new big city downtown temporary apartment home, which is why through the course of this video you're going to hear the dulcet tones of some trams and buses. And is that the sound of somebody getting stabbed on the streets? Wow. We've just moved in here. Obviously the walls and stuff are still barren, but I'm making it a priority to get you guys learned before I start unboxing and decorating. Paul Gilbert is undoubtedly one of the hottest shredders of all time, and he's always been a really big influence on me and my playing with those sequence licks and his alternate picking sound and stuff like that. One of Paul's favorite tricks for super high speed licks is to use a 3-note per string scale with a combination of picking and legato in a specific order. Today's lick is in the key of A minor, but you could apply the same idea to any other 3-note per string scale pattern. And as always, tabs for this lesson are available over on my Instagram page at Ben Eller Guitars. Just search for hashtag Weekend Wankshop 254, find the tabs and start shredding today. Downloadable tabs, backing tracks, bonus lessons, and more are available to everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. I'll also be uploading a bonus lesson showing you guys how you can do the same concept in a descending pattern. So if you sign up for the Patreon today, even just the $1 level, you're going to get access to an additional bonus lesson that shows you how to take this idea backwards. So click the link in the video description, find the tier that suits you best, and start reaping the benefits today. Okay, so this lick is in A minor, which means it's just going to be using all natural, gluten-free, organic notes. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A. Now Paul loves himself some 3-note per string scales and all the cool things you can do with them. Like for example, if you take the first 6 notes of this scale down here on the bottom strings, A, B, C, D, E, F, or 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, if you want to look at it that way. Now whenever you have 3 notes on this string and 3 notes on this string, straight up alternate picking through that gets difficult because you would end up going down, up, down, up, down, up. Do you see how the picking inverted itself? First 3 was down, up, down. The next 3 was up, down, up. Now obviously for Paul, blazing through that with alternate picking is no problem, but one thing that he likes to do a lot of times, just for I think tonal variety more than anything, is to mix it up with some hammer-ons. And the way that he probably likes to do that the most is by starting off with a downstroke and 2 hammer-ons. So I pick the 5, hammer it on the next 2 notes. And then when you get to the next string, what you're going to do is to pick all of these and go up, down, up. So it's still been down, up. So it's technically alternate picking. It's all a downstroke followed by an up, down, up. It's just that you're mixing it up with that little pause of the legato. I recommend putting that 2-string pattern on loop like that for a while and practicing it nice and slow, making sure you're keeping a good smooth time feel with this before you start moving it through an entire scale pattern. Now let's get on to the lick itself that I played at the first of the video. Now I started this off with a couple of different 3-note per string pairs across the bottom 2 strings of the guitar. This is something I've heard Paul do a lot of times. Just take this concept and apply it laterally on 2 strings. I started off here by playing that A minor pattern that we started with. A, B, C, D, E, F on the bottom 2 strings right there. So again, down, up. Next I jumped up a position in the scale here to starting on the B note with my first finger. So here I'm going to be playing B, C, and D, E, F, G on the next 2 strings. So you can see that's just 7, 8, 10 on both strings, a little symmetrical pattern. Again, same deal, down, hammer, hammer, up, down, up, okay? Next come up another position in the scale. Now once we're here, we're going to be playing through essentially like a 3-note per string C scale. So let me give you an idea of what that pattern looks like, that way you can follow along a little bit more easy. So I'm going to be playing 8, 10, 12 on the bottom 2 strings here. That's C, D, E, F, G, A. After this, what we're going to do is to come up a fret with our first finger here to the 9th fret, the B note. We're going to play 9, 10, 12 on the next 2 strings. Okay? And then here on the B string, we're gonna play 10, 12, and 13. You could continue the scale pattern out and play the same thing on the high E right there, but I didn't in the case of this lick. So after you do those first two ascending positions, we're gonna start this idea going through that 3-note per string C scale. So start off here on the bottom 2 strings, pick, 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 pick. Now what we're gonna do is to restart this idea from the A string. So you're already in the right position, you're already on the right frets. Just start that same pick stroke with some hammer-ons, 3 pick notes on the next string idea from right there. So we're gonna start off here on the 8 on the A string. And you can see how I went up to the next scale position right there, the 9, 10, and the 12. So it's E to A to D. Next you're gonna go D to G. Again, handy symmetrical patterns on those 2 strings right there, 9, 10, and 12. And then lastly what you're gonna do is to go from G to B, which is gonna involve another position shift. So we're gonna play the 9, 10, and 12 here on the G. Then we're gonna go to the B and play 10, 12, 13, okay? And then lastly, just for resolution, I ended on the A note, the 10th fret of the B string right there. Always important to guide these licks somewhere and land on a targeted note that is relevant to the chord you're playing against. I was playing this over just an A, so A is a pretty good note to stop on. A lot of times people take ideas like this and they just play them until they run out of track. You know what I mean? They run out of strings. But the truth of the matter is that last note isn't necessarily always the finish line. That might clash really badly depending on what chord you're playing against. This F note would sound great if it was over an F chord, but this F note against A, not so much. So whenever you're playing sequence licks like this, always be sure to have a final destination in mind. One thing I tell my students all the time, no joyriding. Get in that car and drive it somewhere, you know? Don't just aimlessly wander around or end where the road stops. So all together here we got our first couple of position hopping sequences starting from the low E, and then we ascend up that big C major pattern at the 8th fret. Such a cool sounding sequence, and it's way easier than just trying to straight up alternate pick through a scale. It's also way more interesting melodically than just playing straight through a scale. Really, really good one to add to the toolbox, and there's a lot of benefits that this adds to your picking powers. Let's talk about that. One of the reasons why it's really important to practice licks like this is that they really highlight the 2 string changing mechanics that we can make with our pick. And what I mean by that is string changes that happen after downstrokes and string changes that happen after upstrokes. Anybody that watches my channel knows that I'm completely obsessed with Troy Grady's Cracking the Code series, which you should definitely watch here on YouTube if you want to get serious about improving your alternate picking skills. It's just like the religion for shredders. So be sure to go check out Troy's channel. Tell him Uncle Ben sent you. The main focus of the series is the use of downwards pick slanting and upwards pick slanting, which are 2 different picking styles that put our pick on a trajectory to change strings in a smooth and efficient fashion like all of our heroes do. What you'll find when you start studying the pick slanting stuff is there's essentially 2 different kinds of string changing strokes that you can make. When you're in a downward pick slanting playing position, kind of like the trajectory my pick is making right now, where you can see the downstroke goes into the strings, upstroke goes out. You'll see that with the upstroke here, it's far away from the strings, which means it's always going to be easy to change strings because the pick isn't trapped in between 2 strings like it is right here. So when you play with the downward pick slanting style, your upstroke is your string changing stroke. It's kind of a specialized move that not only hits a note, but also takes you to the next string. The opposite is true of what we'd call upward pick slanting. Whenever you upward pick slant, your upstrokes are kind of trapped in between the 2 strings and your downstrokes go out and away. So again, we have 2 different specialized string changing strokes, the downward pick slanting upstroke and the upwards pick slanting downstroke. Whenever you practice this lick, you get to practice both of those string changing mechanics. Because essentially whenever you do that very first phrase, the downstroke with the hammer-ons, what you should be doing here is trying to get your pick out and under the A string. So in other words, don't just do a downstroke on the E like this, try to make it go like this. Kind of overhang and get underneath the A string. You can see right here, if this was the A string, I'm kind of trying to take that downstroke and get under it. Since next I'm doing an upstroke, it's advantageous to be under here and not just this, and then I have to hop under there, you know what I mean? Use that downstroke to get you under the A string. A good idea is just to do that single downstroke and freeze frame. Look down at your pick, the tip of the pick should be beneath the A string. Now after that, you do the up, down, up. And the opposite is gonna be true here. That last upstroke that you do should be taking you up above the low E string. Again, if it was just going straight up like this, it'd be kind of caught between the two strings. Make sure that upstroke goes up and over the low E so you can start this pattern over again. So in other words, if you were to look at the pick and the strings, you'd see the first downstroke gets me under the A. I do the 2 hammer-ons. I go up, down, up. And again, that upstroke places me above the low E string again. So whenever you practice this, you're practicing those 2 essential string changing mechanics. The downstroke that gets you out of the strings, the upstroke that gets you out of the strings. The upwards pick slanted downstroke, the downward pick slanted upstroke. I'm just dyslexic enough that that really screws with me. But whenever you practice that lick, you're going to be getting to practice both of those, which is going to be really beneficial for your picking. Be sure to not let the hammer-ons outrun the picking in this lick. A lot of us have this problem where, you know, when it comes to legato, we just floor it and we'll grab hammer-ons as fast as we can get them, regardless of if it's fitting into the rhythm or not, you know? So licks like this that are a combination of legato and picking are a really great way to help you get your hammer-ons and pull-offs in a lot more metric, rhythmic fashion. So in other words, it shouldn't sound like this, where the hammer-ons are going by really fast. It should sound metrically even like this. Triplet, 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 triplet. And one of the tricks that I used in order to get used to the picking feel on this is just to completely ignore the left hand. This is something that actually I picked up from some other Paul Gilbert videos. He talked about whenever you're facing a lick like this that has some tricky picking that you might not be used to, just break it down to what just this hand is doing, okay? So in other words, with this lick, if I just muted the strings over here, if I was just to isolate just the picking only, even at really high speeds, it's actually pretty simple. It's like this. Down, up, 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 down, up. I think it's definitely within reach that most players will be able to get this up to a reasonably high speed with the right hand. Remember, it's down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And when you think about it, even when you're playing this lick extremely fast, if you isolate just this hand, there's not all that much going on. So take your time getting that 2-string sequence down. Again, isolate just the picking hand if you want to, kind of divide and conquer. Just gotta make the rest of this a lot easier. So there you go, guys. Take that concept of a half-picked phrase and apply it to your own licks that you design. Take it through whatever 3-note per string scale pattern that you know. Be sure to mix up the phrasing. Don't just go straight through a scale with it. That starts getting kind of boring. Mix it up. Have some spots in there where you backtrack or maybe skip a string or go back a few strings or change positions like we did today. Just gotta mix it up and keep it interesting. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell down there for notifications every time that I put up a new slice of fried gold. If you like what you see here on my channel and want to say thanks, be sure to check out that Patreon page at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Well guys, it's been fun as always, but it's time to get away from the computer and go play some guitar. Less clicking, more picking.